Great.
Good. Good. Well, a little bit about myself. My name is Kyle Rawls. I work with Caroline Close team in the Peninsula. I've been in the business since 2003. I started my career in Lubbock, Texas, so a smaller market for sure, working with first-time home buyers as I was going through college. And then 2012, I moved to Minnesota, started my career all over, and hooked up with Cynthia Freud, who's also in Gary's 100, selling condos along the river. And then in 2015, we moved to the Bay Area, and I started as a productivity coach, took a little bit of a pivot in my career, and then got back into sales and then joined up with Caroline. So been in the business since 2003, seen a few shifts, kind of been through this before, started my career over twice. And so you guys, this is all about you. I'm just here to kind of answer some questions, kind of talk to you guys about what you guys are doing that's winning. You can ask us what we're doing that's winning. I think the biggest thing right now is what is the market doing and where is it going? And how are we kind of combating that? So if anybody has any questions, like this can be like a mastermind thing. This is exactly what you want to do. So I'm going to let you kind of tell us where to go and I'll steer the ship. So yes, ma'am.
I think I'm having trouble with reverting.
Conversion from appointment to contract or what?
I'm getting the leads, having that conversation, having that energy, having that emotion, but going from there to committing to looking at houses.
Yes. So it's funny because on the way over here, of course, I had plenty of time on the road. And so, of course, I had a few meetings this morning with some of our team, and this was one of the things that popped up, right? So one of the things that we're starting to see as one of the biggest objections right now is, okay, well, there's Redfin, there's all of these different companies, there's a few other new ones that we just heard of recently. So why should I work with you? Or what does that look like? So I think it's just figuring out your unique value proposition and going from that. But to answer your question, in terms of the conversion, what does your process look like? Are you spending some time doing the buyer consultation and kind of going through that process?
Yes.
Okay, yes, and okay, so perfect. So what we found is, I'm going to call it the last market, right? Because we're in a totally different market. The last market where things were selling crazy, you know, and I tell Michelle, for our area and our price point, it really is add a few zeros, but the process is exactly the same. So in the last market, the buyer consultation was so important because at that point, it was us giving them information on the market, but also finding out, do they have the guts to compete in that market, right? We've shifted and we feel it majorly. Now the buyer consultation is still super important. The conversation's changed a little bit, but it's still, do you have the guts to compete in this market, right? So it's always going to be that kind of same conversation. Last market in our area was, do you have $1 million over that you can spend to get this offer? This market is, you know, interest rates are going up. How are we combating that? What is this looking like? But you're not paying $1 million over, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a balance there in a way, but we're using it as the opportunity for our buyers, right? So all of our conversations are about the opportunities that are out there because there are some really great opportunities. We've seen more listings in the last month than we saw in like an entire quarter last year, right? So it also is just really knowing those numbers, right? So when you're trying to go through and convert people or having that conversation of an open house, going to an appointment, going to looking at houses, why should they work with you? Do you know your numbers? Do you know what the market's doing? Do you know what the interest rates are doing? Do you know if the seller can buy down some points? Do you know if the buyer can buy down some points? Can they get a gift to buy down some points so they can kind of still combat that interest rate conversation there? So I would say, like, at this point, like even for our team, it is really going back to the extreme basics, but perfecting those basics and knowing that, like, if we get somebody into a consultation, and you can go back and look at our numbers from even the last few years, right? If we get somebody and we go through that really great consultation, our consultations are probably about an hour, a little bit over, maybe an hour and a half, depending on their needs and kind of where they are in the process. If we get them through that buyer process and that consultation, and then we can get them to go through the grand tour, we've got them as clients. They're not going to go anywhere else, right? So it really is just making sure that we get them to that point. If they don't want to go through the consultation or they don't want to go through that, they just want to go out and look at houses. If we go back and look at our numbers, those are the people that it took forever. They didn't listen to us. They lost out on a bunch of offers. So we use that in even in trying to get for people to the consultation, we know our numbers. We can say, okay, if we go through and look at everybody who went through this formalized process, they were in houses much quicker than the people who didn't.
So using things like market data analysis, like, one university, if I'm at a Tracy open house, taking that with me.
Yeah, so our team, what we do is we track on a weekly basis, and this is a maps thing. So we track the number of new listings. And so for us, our area is quite large. So we're really kind of looking at like Burlingame down to Atherton. But of course, we take out Hillsborough and Atherton because those really skew our numbers. But we're looking at what's the total number of listings, how many hit in the last 7 days, what number of those went pending in the last 7 days, what number sold in the last 7 days, how many price reductions were there, how many expireds were there, how many cancels were there. One of the new things we're tracking is how many price increases were there, right? We're tracking increases and decreases so that at any open house, today's Monday, so at 2 p.m., we'll also be going over this in our team meeting with our small team, but we know our numbers on a weekly basis and we can go back and track those and we can actually say, okay, this week, this is what happened, right? So if you're at an open house and you know all of that information, it's really great. It makes you the market specialist. It makes you appear to know what's going on in the market, right? So it's a simple spreadsheet, it's simple MLS numbers, but just knowing those right off of the top of your head makes you heads and shoulders above the competition.
Do you guys need that repeated at all? Just so you know, because what he's saying is you need to bring that. Okay, and you need to know those numbers because I'm watching some people and you're not writing it down. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Can you just repeat like what you said about, is it the new listings, the pending, the sold?
Yeah, so and I can show you the spreadsheet, but what we're typically looking for is the total number of listings,
Okay.
what hit within the last 7 days, because we're looking at it week over week. So I can actually go back and say, okay, this last week there was 50 properties. Well, let's put that into comparison for the week of July 4th, right? Which we automatically know the week of July 4th, new listings is going to be slower. Everybody's gone, whatever. So we can kind of now look at how did this week compare to a holiday week? Right, so we're also looking at number of pendings, number of solds, number of expireds and cancels, right? Because we want to know who's coming off the market, right? We do number of price reductions. We've also recently started tracking price increases, right? Because as the market's beginning to correct or stabilize, what we're seeing is there's still some agents in our market that are pricing it to think that they can get 40 offers. They don't get 40 offers, they don't get any offers. Offer date comes and goes, or maybe they get one and wasn't what they were expecting. And now they increase the price to be more transparent on what that seller is hoping for. So we're tracking that information as well, just so we can kind of see what's going on. We need to know everything. And then that will actually graph it for us as well, so we can look at the trends.
Which I think you sent that to us before. I'm going to pull it up and send it out.
Yeah, and I can send you kind of what we're looking at as well. If you don't have this one, I can send it to you as well. But it's just so important to have this information. We're taking all of this with us to our open houses. And of course, now for our team, one of the things that we're trying to do is really set the standard of all of our buyers agents going and touring inventory, right? So every Tuesday, of course, Tuesdays is our broker tour. So we're going out and touring all of the inventory as we would. But we are utilizing social media to kind of do the top 5 that we like. But in addition to that, we also keep a spreadsheet. And in that is all of the basic MLS information. And then there's a section where agents, all of our buyer team, can go in and do our insight, right? So we're going through in any given week, I'm looking at 30 to 50 properties, depending on how many are new or how many fit our criteria. And then all of our buyers have access to that spreadsheet. So they can go through and see, oh, if I'm looking in Redwood City, Kyle has gone through and seen 17 properties in Redwood City. Here's my feedback on this information. So that and they may say, oh, I was looking in Redwood City, but you also saw something in San Carlos that I liked the feedback on or whatever. But it's also been really great for me to go to an open house and say, when somebody comes in and they say, oh, we just came from the open house down the street. Oh yeah, I saw that one. How does this one compare to that one? Or how does that one compare to this one? That house may actually be a better house. I don't know, right? But if I'm not going through and viewing those properties, why would the buyer trust me, right? Because at this point, buyers are getting everything online and they're seeing everything online. Coming soons, everything is online now. We can't do a lot of off-market coming soon because of the rules and regulations changes, right? But if it's on MLS, chances are I've seen it, right? So I have it set in my calendar to preview 5 houses a day. We're working to get all of our buyers agents on the same page. So all of our buyers agents have access to the same Google spreadsheet, and we may see 60 properties, and it's just got all of our insight on it. And every single week we're updating that, which has been really great. And we have had, from that, we've had a few of our buyers who will constantly look at that, and it's spurring conversation, right? To where they say, oh, like, I hadn't considered this, but in flipping through the photos, like, it didn't look great, but then I read your commentary and there's opportunity here that we didn't think about before. And so now maybe we want to go see it, right? So that's one thing. But I would just say, like, know the information. Know what's happening in your market, know what's happening in the neighborhood, know the inventory, and you come across as the market specialist, right? And I think we're getting into a market where it's much more skills-based now. Like in the previous market, it was so easy for anybody to put a sign in the yard and get 12 offers. Or same thing with a buyer. It was easy, say that, but there may be 20 offers. But like, I think we're getting into a position now where it's going to go back to skills-based. And the knowledge that you bring to the table is where you're going to separate yourself from the competition. I hope that answered your question in a very long form.
Actually, I got a lot of little nuggets out of that.
Does anybody else have any questions or want to talk about anything specific?
Okay, what's the wording that you use or the model that you use when I'm your customer and I say, I want to wait? Don't you think I should wait? Because the market's going to go down.
That's interesting. Tell me more. Like how do you think, where in your mind, where do you see the market going and where are you pulling this information from? Right? So I think it's all just a conversation, right? So everybody's kind of like, oh, interest rates are going to keep going up, or should I wait and see if prices are going to go down? Well, where are you pulling your information that prices are actually going down? So we're not necessarily seeing that.
Right.
We are seeing some reductions, we are seeing some things, but at the same time, if you look at our inventory and our numbers, there are still houses that are getting multiple offers. There are still houses selling 100, 200, 300,000 above asking price. It's not every one, right? We are seeing reductions. We are seeing some of that, but it's not with every single house. And so, I mean, if you look at national numbers, if you look at Keeping Current Matters, if you look at any of that, they're saying from all of their stuff that yes, we are still going to appreciate. We're not going to see a decline in the market. I think we'll see a stabilization. But I don't think that we're going to see a huge depletion of the market, right? We're still in an inventory shortage per se. Like there's still not a whole lot to choose from. Granted, it's been more in the last month than it has been in a quarter, but that's still not a lot, right? And so for our buyers, we're really capitalizing on opportunity costs and looking at the opportunity of buying now, knowing that there's not a lot of competition. A lot of buyers have taken a step back to try to see what's going on. And while they've taken a step back to see what's going on, that's why we're going in and scooping up that inventory. Because there's some great inventory out there right now. And buyers haven't had this option to look at stuff for a while, right? And now that's also spurred the conversation of, oh, well, maybe something better will come along. Great, maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe interest rates will go up again. I don't know, right? But what I do know is the market at the moment And that's what we're capitalizing on, is our information for that market of the moment.
I have Canada. It's good to see you. Lynn, and thanks so much for coming up here. Okay, so you're in the peninsula.
Yep.
And obviously you're in a different market
Yep.
than what we are here in the valley. But typically what you start to see is really shifting down there will always trickle up here.
Right.
So what is the one thing that you are seeing that has been a major shift with working with buyers and sellers down there that we're going to trickle up here?
Yeah, so it's funny, right? Because like you're saying, we're in the mid-peninsula, there's so much happening, and then it ripples out, right? And it always ripples back in too. Like, we're kind of the first to see it, but we're always like the last to kind of see it on the flip side. What we're seeing right now is a lot of inventory that's coming on that's not market ready, right? So the sellers have not come in and done the kitchens. They haven't gone in and painted everything, which may be a little bit different for your market than it is for ours. Where we're at, we are still typically going through doing paint, interior, exterior for sure, sometimes flooring, sometimes kitchens and bathrooms, right? But the buyers right now, because we're still in a pandemic, because we're kind of getting back to a phase where, you know, some parts already have masks mandatory again or whatever, buyers still don't have the opportunity of a lot of time to do renovations. Costs are still high. You know, so people are still working from home, right? There's a lot of that. People are still schooling from home in some situations. So our buyers, when we're going through and doing that consultation, we're always asking them, you know, part of our initial consultation questions that we send ahead of time so that we're prepared is, do they want to do work to home? What are they looking for? Do they need move-in ready, or do they want to do a little bit of work? And of course, everyone always comes back and says, we're okay with a little bit of work. So then our follow-up question is, what does a little bit of work mean to you? Right? If you're a flipper, a little bit of work might mean I want to tear the whole thing apart. If you're a first-time home buyer, a little bit of work might mean I need to paint, and that is the extent of my expertise, and I don't even know if I can do that well. So we always need to know that. But what we're kind of seeing is inventory that hasn't been made completely ready. All of our listing conversations, you know, the buyers team is part of that as well, especially as we get closer to pricing, because the buyers agents on our team, we're the ones out there. We see 40, 60 properties a week. So we know the inventory, we know what's coming along, so that we can go in and tell the seller at that point, here's what we're seeing, here's your competition, here's what this is, so that our listing agent doesn't have to do that. Right? It's a third party, it's a third party information. I'm just a buyer's agent, but I know every single thing on the market. And so if I'm getting feedback from all of these properties that we're showing our buyers, now I can go to that listing and say, okay, here's why it is important that we do XYZ. Here's why it's still important that we are doing those renovations before hitting the market, because that's what the buyers are still looking for, right? So our market right now is kind of, we're seeing the ones that need a lot of work go to developers. Developers are back in the market because they have cash flow. So it's development opportunities and finished ones. That middle ground is kind of where we're seeing price reductions. It's where we're seeing things take a little bit longer. And you can see those reflected in the numbers that we track every single week. So that's kind of the two ends of the market that are moving the fastest right now. But it's still so important just to kind of to know that going through.
Thank you. You just gave me two great ahas. Sending my questionnaire prior to my consultation is huge, and that's something I want to implement. So thank you. And then buyers feedback from sellers directly. I really like that.
So we actually changed that a few years ago to where we would send that questionnaire ahead of time, because I didn't want to spend 30 minutes being like, how many bedrooms do you want? Right? What's important to you about bedrooms? So we send that ahead of time. It's the very first thing right after the intro email. Hey, take 5 minutes, fill out this questionnaire. But it also gives me an opportunity to pull market data, to pull some houses, to pull some things that they're talking about, so that we're driving that conversation and not the buyer who has no idea what they're looking for. It also helps us determine motivation. Have they spoken to a lender yet? Do I need to have lender information on hand? Right? Do I need to go through the book a little bit more? Are they first-time home buyers? They have absolutely no idea what's going on. Or are they kind of like 4 or 5, this is their 4th or 5th house, right? Next question, is this your 4th or 5th house in the Bay Area? Or is this your first house in the Bay Area? That's 2 different things, right? Especially like they may have a house here, but they may be buying a house in Belmont. That's probably two different.
Maybe.
I mean, we move so fast,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure you guys do too, but if you have somebody moving from Texas who's bought 12 houses and they're coming here, process is totally different, right?
Especially
Few extra
for
zeros,
us.
and disclosures are totally different. They may not be used to the speed.
Yeah.
Right? We are still moving so very fast. Our average days on market is still 11 to 15. That's still really, really good. So we're still kicking it along.
I'm just curious, because over here, it's like you're on the market a lot longer. And then also, you see houses go into contract or pending, and then they fall out for some reason, and they're back on the market. Are you seeing that at all?
What's interesting is we are actually just now starting to see contingencies. We're starting to see more and more financing contingencies, appraisal contingencies, inspection contingencies, which for the longest time, we've been fully non-contingent, right? So that's an opportunity area for us in the Bay to learn from you guys where you have had inspections for quite some time, right? So I think, again, it all is just education, right? When we go to write an offer, we're still trying to educate our buyers in terms of like what the market is, what the inspections we have, what those mean. Do we have the opportunity of doing things a little bit further? But if we're still in a competitive environment, the contingencies, I always tell everybody when we're writing an offer, we always start on the same level. Everybody starts on the same page. And then any blank that I can fill in either moves us up in the pack or down in the pack, right? And so, we can go through and put as many inspections as you want and as many contingencies as you want, but every single one that we do, that moves us lower in the pack. And in our last market where things were super competitive, we may not have an opportunity to get the call back, no matter how good our relationship is with that other agent. We may not have that opportunity if we're not in the top, right? So even in this market where things have shifted, if you're still in a multiple offer situation, we're still getting some. Our last listing had 9 offers, and the one before that still had 10, right? In this market, still selling quite drastically over the asking price, but not as drastic as before, right? So those are still happening, right? So right now it's just educating the buyer in terms of what we're seeing in that happen. And so we are communicating with agents constantly, whether it be through broker's tour or whether it be when we're getting ready to write the offer with the agent, we're constantly calling them, right? In the past market, we wanted to know everything that was pending because we wanted to know how many offers did you get. If you got 10, that means there's 9 other buyers that are probably coming over here, right? So it was very important for us to know that information, but even in this market, it's still super important for us to know how many offers did you get on that property? Where is it going to sell for? Did you have any contingencies on it, right? Because those are the buyers that we're still going to be competing against, but it's also the mentality of everybody else that's writing offers out there. So we're constantly talking with agents. Again, it's our opportunity to figure out what else do they have coming up, right? So that's part of our value proposition when buyers are coming to work with us is we are constantly in the field, number one, previewing properties, but we're constantly in relationship and communication with agents, active, pending, and sold, and our appraisers, right? And the inspectors. So we just had one that we were in contract for, it's in Palo Alto. We got it off market, but the inspections were already done. That's great. I know the inspector. I call him. We have an appointment with him this afternoon to call and just kind of say, hey, you were under the house. I've never been under this house. Seller has never been under this house. You were under this house. Can you explain a little bit more about what you found here, right? Just pick up the phone, right? It's kind of going back to those basics. I feel like when the market was really good, a lot of people got very lazy. They fell into the market. Same thing happened, 10 years ago, whenever people were getting into the market then. So, did that answer your question?
Absolutely, I've got 2 more nuggets. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to get some intel. I'm Marissa. I'm with Evergreen Home Loans. But I need some intel on some of that question that was asked back there about the on and off the market. That is something that's big. Just from my personal experience, I probably speak to about 8 first-time home buyers a day from Calhapa clients not referred by agents, but calling in because they've been pre-approved and they want more information about the specialty types of financing they are. My very first question is, have you been approved?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I've talked to 2 or 3 lenders. Typically it's 2 or 3, especially out there because they're always shopping for rate. But they know nothing. They know what the rate is. They know nothing about cash to close. They know nothing about the payment. And so when they're getting offers accepted, they're pulling out because they have no education on what they're really getting into, and lenders are not doing their job and making sure that happens. And so that knowledge, when you guys are talking with the getting an offer accepted, making sure that they have those cost analysis, that you understand this cost analysis, those are things that are going to help definitely them stay into contract more.
100%. Yeah. So the question was mostly about lending, right?
Mhm.
So again, that is one of the main questions that we ask on our questionnaire kind of coming into it is, who are you working with? Have you been pre-approved? Right. And in many cases, right, like the relationship with the lender is almost just as important as the relationship with the agent. Right. And so especially in this market where maybe you can find like an Ally or a Rocket that has like really great rates. As an agent, as a buyer's agent going through, yeah, they may have really great rates, but can you call them without having to call an 800 number? Can I call them on a Saturday? Will they talk to me on a Sunday afternoon at 3:30 when we're at an open house and we want to know, can we make this happen? So even in that situation where they may come to us and say, oh yeah, we're pre-approved with Rocket or Ally or Quicken Loans or whoever, right? There's 100 of them out there. Okay, great. Let's ask some more questions about this. Let's find out, have you gone through this? Have you talked about closing costs? Have you talked about all of this other stuff? Would you mind having a conversation with our lender, XYZ, whoever that could be? We usually provide 3 or 4, sometimes 5. But even with our lending relationships, we have a very wide net. So we know, okay, if you're 30% down, you have 2 million in the bank, we're not going to send you over to this lender that does like different types of programs. We've got 2 or 3 that are very inside a box. They're very straightforward, good to go. If you come back to us and you're like, oh, you know, we may be looking for like a 10% down option or something so we can have an extra 10% to do some work to the house. Okay, great. I'm not going to send you to First Republic. They're not even going to talk to you. So as an agent, it's also my responsibility to know like, who are my vendor relationships here so that I can start a communication over here. And then I can pick up the phone on a Saturday afternoon and say, hey, Mr. Lender, like, good news. We have a buyer who's interested in the property. They're pre-approved over here, but I think there's an opportunity for you to win by XYZ. Then when they have a conversation and says, oh, hey, you know, Kyle, I talked to Kyle and he gave me your information. They're already like, oh yeah, I already know everything about this. I can get you pre-approved in a day or whatever that looks like. Or you know what, maybe this isn't the right fit for us, or maybe I can't beat Ally, whatever. But it's just having those conversations. So right now, I mean, in this market we're in, the buyers want the best rate, they want everything. So yeah, you might be able to find a lender with a really good rate, but what does all the underlying stuff look like?
Yeah.
What do those closing costs look like? Are you having to pay any points? That's where a lot of lenders are kind of getting you right now is, oh, we can offer 4%, but the buyer's responsible for paying the point at closing. The point on a $1 million property is much. Yeah.
Have you reviewed the loan estimate? Do you have
Right.
questions on the loan estimate?
Did you get a loan
Did
estimate?
you get a loan estimate?
Get one?
Yeah.
Can I just piggyback on that I think it's really huge that you partner with lenders like Marissa, who had an offer out with one of our agents. And when that offer is sent, the lender is going to be calling that
Yeah.
listing agent to talk about the buyer's credit worthiness.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be key. I was able to get out 2 cash offers that were at the same price as me, but it was because of myself, my relationship, and the lender that had called.
Yeah.
So
So even for our
is
lenders to
crucial.
kind of be in part of our book, right? Like not only do they have to win with us,
Yeah.
they have to win with our clients.
Yeah.
And if our clients have ever had like a really bad relationship with them, or if something has happened or whatever, that lender kind of gets scratched from our book as well, right? Because we have to know that the people that we're referring are really great. But at the same time, like we kind of also given them like a script book as well in terms of like, hey, if we refer you to somebody, here's how we would like for you to speak with them. Here's kind of the timeline of those events. Here's kind of what that looks like, so that we're on the same page in terms of our communication so that they're getting the same level of service all the way across, right? So it's exactly what you're saying. I always have my lender call the listing agent day, like before I'm submitting an offer, to say, hey, I know you're going to be getting an offer from Kyle. I've already pre-approved these clients. We've underwritten them. This is what this looks like. So just know that when you get our offer, it's going to be good to go. We've done everything, right? And so they know that script. They know that it's the expectation that they call that listing agent, or that they're going to be getting a call from that listing agent, and they better pick up the phone, right? I don't want it to go to voicemail. I don't want it to go to a text message. I want you to pick up the phone and say, hey, I know you just received our offer. Here's our next step. Should you accept our offer, right? So we're good to go.
The standards and expectations.
Yeah.
Clients and like,
And especially now when like, we still want to make sure that like, we're firing on all cylinders so that we're moving quickly. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So I'm relatively new. It's Kyle Rawls.
Yeah.
I've got a great set of people, great coach. Don't have any problems on that front. But what I want to ask is, when you have new agents joining you, okay, number one, what are your expectations? Number two, what are the things you do that maybe some of them make different? So I can learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat the question so everybody can hear it, because I was going to go into that next chapter as well. So as a buyer, as an agent, you on a team, you're hiring another agent for the team. Can you share with me what the expectations are? How high are your standards, which I know they're even higher than mine, I bet, which is unbelievable. And I think you should, that's wonderful. But I want you to be very detailed in the sense that it's not just that, you know, you're going to coast over and be on our team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
I got you on water.
do I look parched? So I think to answer the first part of your question, as a new agent, what would I do in terms of like getting into the market very quickly, right? So I think, again, it goes back to knowing the inventory. If you can do anything, know the inventory, right? As a newer agent, you may not have any clients, you may not have that, but you have a Supra. You have access to every house that's on the market. Go look at it. So that if you're out somewhere and somebody says, oh, there was a house over on 3rd Street. Oh yeah, I saw that one. Did you know that at blah, 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 whatever, right? So you're just setting yourself up that you're not just looking at the MLS every day and just looking at pretty pictures, and you know the floor plans of these places, you know the quirks about these places, you know that, oh, it backs up right to a cemetery. Oh, did you know it smells like cat pee? Oh, did you know X, Y, Z, right? So that when somebody comes to you at an open house or whatever, you know every single thing. Next, host an open house, right? There's tons of opportunities for open houses. There's opportunities now for open houses going into a 2nd or 3rd weekend, right? First weekend is always going to be your best opportunity because it's new. That's when everybody's going to want to see it, but there is opportunity for 2nd and 3rd weekend because maybe somebody didn't get approved for that first weekend. Maybe they're brand new to the market. Maybe they didn't want to go to it for the first weekend because they thought it was going to go into 12 offers. Maybe they don't have an agent, so they're going to go through that 2nd weekend. They're going to go through that 3rd weekend. And that's when it comes to you. You're there hosting an open house. You've seen everything around it. And now there's an unrepresented buyer coming through and you know all of the information for it, right? So standards of our team, we're constantly working on what do those standards look like, right? For me, my standards for myself are seeing 5 houses a day, right? On Tuesday broker tour, that's probably 20, right? For me, it's for the next month, my goal with Caroline has been 5 CMAs a day to all of our past clients, right? Going down our list, going through them saying, hey, you bought 5 years ago. Aren't you glad you bought when you did, right? Let's talk about what this looks like. 15 calls a day going through all of our database. 2 appointments new per week, not with any of our old people. And then my goal is 3 contracts per month for that. And so for our newer agents, when they come on to us, we're working to build that standard in with them as well. Because as a new agent, what do you have? time. Right. So I'm in the process now of kind of bringing a showing specialist, market specialist up with me. So he's on all of my calls. Michele, our other buyer's agent, is on most of our calls too. But they're learning how we talk. They're learning how we show houses. They're learning how we do final verifications of property. They're learning how we communicate with these lenders. They're learning how we communicate with the inspectors. They're learning how we report numbers to the team. They're learning how we are working on social media, right? That's an area of opportunity for us, is social media and recording some of these videos. We've got really great information. We're looking at all these numbers per week in terms of like market in a minute. Great, now let's put those down on something that's got some shelf life. Let's get that information out so that it's not just staying within our head. It's not just staying within our team. It's not just staying within the four walls of our office, but it's an opportunity for us to share some information that's out there, right? So like, I live in Redwood City. Redwood City has some amazing parks. Most people don't know about the parks. I have a 2-year-old. So for me, it's like, hey, did you know that there's 4 hidden parks around Redwood City? Hey, did you know that our Saturday morning activity is to go get coffee and then go to this hidden park and then work our way down to this park and go to this hidden trail? So we're kind of in the process of trying to like get some of those things out on paper and out on video too.
So that's huge, you guys. I was in a mastermind over the weekend, and that's all we talked about was leveraging people around us to help us put videos out there. Because when people are scrolling through social media, they're more looking at stories, right? Instead of scrolling down, right? Or watching the videos, the funny videos, which sooner or later something else is going to pop in, right? So that is great content, what you just suggested. I hope to see more of that, just so you know. I forwarded, I don't know, maybe 30 videos of somebody else in KW doing something like that over the weekend. And so I hope to see more of this.
Yeah, and I
It's
mean, right
important.
now, what's important to buyers right now? Interest rates,
Yeah.
all of those things. So actually, while I was in Texas a few weeks ago, we had a buyer meeting with all of our buyers. They were all invited. And we had our lender on. And it was talking about the market. Where do we see interest rates going? How are we winning with some of our buyers to get into properties? What are some of the things that we're thinking outside of the box on in terms of points? How are we locking in our buyers? How are we setting those expectations up front? And now Kyle, our marketing person, is going to take some of that information and break it down into 1-minute pieces of information that now we can utilize on our social media, right? So we had an 1.5-hour conversation with our lender, and now we've got 20 segment pieces that we can utilize, not in just of like, hey, what is the market doing? But it's like, hey, did you know like the differences between a 10% loan and a 20% loan? What are some mortgage do's and don'ts, right? So like for us, that was a 1-minute video that we're working on right now is what are the top 5 things to not do while you're buying a house?
Maybe
So
buy a
they're
car.
segments.
So that way,
Right.
is that something you're gonna be putting out weekly or
Yeah.
more of a daily format?
It's more of a weekly format, but it's stuff that we can use while the interest rates are remaining the same, right? Some of it's going to be mortgage do's and don'ts. That's always going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
Don't go buy a car. Don't co-sign on something. Don't go buy furniture. Don't go do something. That's all there, right? So that information is all going to be the same. And then the do's we can always use. Top 5 things to do when you get a mortgage application, right? And then it's even like, hey, what are the things that you actually need to start the mortgage application process, right? So those are also videos that we can use.
Great ideas, fabulous ideas.
And yeah, I know this is like a lot of information.
But it's
Thank you.
good.
But any other questions or any, I know it's 1:45.
So, we're not, I feel like we're not feeling bad on this, so what you're experiencing there is a little different here.
Okay,
I don't have a listing that fits more than a week or 2,
yeah,
and we're going into like our 7th, 8th week, and my sellers are like, how come it's not selling?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm
so we're starting to see some of our listings sit 2 weeks on the market, 3 weeks on the market, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. As a buyer, when I'm talking with the buyers that we have that are hot to trot in this market, what I'm telling them is, hey, look, if it goes past that 7 days, that's your opportunity. Like, don't wait until it goes to the price reduction.
Yeah.
Don't wait until it goes to that, because then if you have people kind of hovering around, what does that do? Brings everybody back into the market, and then you may get back into a multiple offer situation. So what I'm saying to them is, okay, like, yeah, it may be towards the top of our price point right now, but if it goes a week, let's have that conversation with them. I'm already picking up the phone to that listing agent
Yeah.
and saying, hey, what are the seller's expectations? What are they hoping for in price here? You know, how did you come up with this price?
That dialogue right
Yeah.
now, like, I'm calling the
Oh, gosh.
area agent going,
Yeah.
hey, you know, let me know, what are the buyers looking for? And I can't even get them to answer the phone half the time.
What's
Or
funny,
I'm so busy, or I can get type, I'm so busy right now. And I'm like, okay, let's, you know, we can buy.
oh, how the
dinner.
tides have changed, right?
Yeah, right? I'm like,
Last
this,
market.
you're like this, no, I'm like this,
Yeah.
okay.
But that was a good, we're not supposed to say script anymore. So that was a good model, what he just suggested, right? So this is how you're going to prepare your buyer so the buyer doesn't wait, right? So it's like you should be practicing that model with each other, or even with Arthur and Beth, because that's, well, when you're on the calls, yes, you, Arthur, you. So yes, so because they do the evening and the day role modeling and things like that. So that's huge, because I can't believe how many texts I got over the weekend regarding stuff like this.
Well, and that's why, like, when I'm going through on broker's tour, when I'm meeting that agent, of course, that's a face-to-face for me.
Yeah.
That's a great conversation. I can accomplish a lot more face-to-face than I can over the phone. So when I'm there, I've got my showing specialist in tow, and I'm having the conversation, what's important to your seller? What are they hoping for in terms of price, right? Especially if the price came on and it's a wackadoodle price. Where'd you come up with price? What are they hoping for? What are their expectations, right? Has that agent
Right.
set them up that they're gonna get 25 offers and it's gonna go $1 million over? If that's the case, then,
Yeah.
but if they've had that conversation and I know that going into it, and I know that the expectation is close to the asking price, I can go to my buyer on Tuesday afternoon and say, hey, look, let's get in here. Let's pay attention to this. Like, let's keep this on our radars. They haven't set an offer date. That's great. Or they have set an offer date. Let's pay attention to this. So we're always trying to drive the motivated ones to purchase properties, right?
Interestingly enough, I've only seen probably 6 or 7 weeks, I've only seen one agent with their buyer. Like, the buyers are coming out in without their agents.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, like, come on, let's talk about this, like, you know, let's sell out.
Right. It's always an open dialogue, right?
Right. Yeah,
I think you're saying though, it's been on the market how many weeks?
it'll be 8 weeks.
Okay, so what's that a reflection of?
Say it again?
What's that a reflection of?
Oh, well, we're too high, but you know what? When you look on the MLS, we're not.
But you must be, the market is telling you you're too high.
Yes.
Right. The market's
But-
spoken, right? There's
but
3
you-
reasons that
your-
things
your
don't
mouth
sell.
But do you, what's the goal? What's the goal?
We should be, I already know, so right down the street.
So, because I think the
Smaller and-
conversation, you've already
Yep.
told us what the problem is.
Yep.
And so it's back to basics. So back to basics, it's also good setting expectations with your sellers about price.
That's right.
And you've been on market too long
Yep.
at that price. And that's why the agents aren't taking their buyers either.
Right.
Well, it's
right,
also aged
yeah.
inventory, right? So at this point, all the buyers have seen it, right? So anytime now that something new comes on, they're going to check that out first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, we came on too high, I knew that. They said, oh, no, let's do that because I want to get what we get. I'm like,
And
okay.
we started to see that a lot when the market when we were starting to see signs of the shift. We were still seeing a lot of listings come on with like pie in the sky, like
Oh, yeah, we're still seeing it.
prices, right?
But they're out of area agents, most of
Right.
them, you know, that are like way up here, like, oh, we're gonna get that tall.
Right, but if a buyer's agent called you and said, what are the expectations here for the seller? Or, you know, hey, I have a buyer who's kind of out there tossing this one around. I'd love
Yeah.
to, you know, get them in the process of this. What would this look like? Or would they consider an offer in this range? Or one of the things I used to do a long, long time ago in Texas before that shift, and now we're kind of getting back into this and we're actually going to try it on one of our listings, is for the listing agent to go to the buyer with a contract and say, hey, here's a contract. If your buyer is still interested, we want to offer it to you first. Let's say we're listed at $1 million. I've talked to my seller. You've kind of been hovering around, you've been asking a lot of questions, so we're coming to you with a 980 offer. Come back to us, or just have a question, right? Let's get the conversation started. We're gonna offer you an offer and kind of go backwards and see if maybe we can get the buyers to come to the table. Because all it is a meeting of the minds, right?
I think it's interesting how it's like we're talking about a seller right now, right? And so all of us, you know, not me, but you know, you guys all have sellers now, and you need to prepare them. This isn't the same as it was a week ago, you guys. It is not. And you know, you're not, this isn't your job to, you know, let's just show this house for 7 weeks. How much time? Time is the most valuable thing you have. So you're gonna use the bold model, right? Let's say you're listing. Okay, so if we haven't got an offer within a week, we're gonna bring it down this amount. All right, now sign this addendum today. Okay, and then, you know, just be the educator, be, you know, implied consent. This is what we're doing, correct? Because you're listing with me, because I am the best, right?
Well, and what's their goal? Their ultimate goal is to sell the house.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well,
I want to go talk to your seller place.
well, and that was the thing is, yeah, and that was the thing is, in the beginning, they thought they had to sell. Well, they're packing, they've already purchased a home.
Oh, I love it.
Right, so their motivations have now
So
changed.
now
They
they're
have a
like,
place.
oh, well, now it's going to be a bonus,
Yeah.
cash in the bank and some more,
But they
property.
have carrying costs every month.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
they don't want to rent it now because it's their beautiful forever home now with Tiffany lamps, and they're like, oh no, if it's a rental, we're taking all that out now. So they don't want to rent it out. So now they're finally gonna agree to put it where I wanted to put it 2 weeks ago. I feel like we're
right, but now you're
chasing-
chasing the market down.
Exactly, yeah. So you
I
need to
told
prepare
them,
for the next
"You
2
need to
weeks.
do a Hail Mary."
Yeah.
And they're like, okay.
Can I say one thing that when you said going back to the basics, that's what I've been working on in my own business, getting back to the basics. And so I'm like with the, I have a listing that sellers are, you know, so I started reverse prospecting. I haven't had to do that in years, so that's something that was backwards.
You have to right now.
And that's what makes me laugh is like in this market, my phone rings 50% more because it's listing agents calling me to say like, hey, I know you showed this 2 months ago. Are your buyers still interested in it? And I'm like, no, we purchased something 2 months ago, right? But it's kind of like, haha, because 2 months ago, as the buyer's agent, I was constantly calling the listing agent and getting that voicemail because I had a buyer for you and I wanted to see like, hey, what is this going to look like? What do my buyers need to do in order to win this offer? You would never answer my call, but I'm still going to answer yours, right? Just like know that like next time, answer the call, right? But it's back to relationships. It's back to the basics. I mean, like we get so far with our relationships with the other agents, and especially when it's talking with buyers. Right, especially if we're going up against a Redfin or like some of these other new ones that are out there where the buyers get a kickback, whatever that is. Why should they come and work with us? Well, here's our value proposition. Here's why. Right, we're working on right now. This was a call that I was on with Caroline and some of our other buyers agents this morning. Is those are objections that we're getting more and more and more. Right, we had a listing in Palo Alto 2 weeks ago. We picked up 2 buyers from it, but both of those buyers said, oh, you know what, we don't want to sign an exclusive. We kind of want to work with whoever can find us a property. We've had some agents say that they'll give us a kickback. That's cute. Let's have this conversation. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what this looks like. So we're in the process right now of just coming up with like a 1-pager that's got all of the major players in it and what they're offering and just our scripting and dialogue of like, how are we overcoming that? But we just were able to get one of those buyers under contract on something off market, but we were also able to show them our value proposition and why you should work with us. And we got you to the table. We got it under what you were hoping for, but we got it over what the seller was expecting, right? So it was just a win-win for everybody. But is your Redfin agent who's offering you a kickback going to have that call with them? No, because you wrote an offer on our listing and I saw how poorly it was written. And you weren't even in the ballpark. You weren't even in top 7 of the listing of the buyers that came through with an offer. So do you want to keep going down that path? Do you want to keep going offer after offer, or do you want to like be moved in?
Okay, so that's something new, because I'm not hearing from buyers
We're hearing it.
But it's the
Right?
Redfin. It's,
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
discount broker.
It's Redfin, but it's also regular agents too, right? It's agents saying, you know what, I will discount my commission by whatever. Okay, great, but how's that affecting you as the buyer? Right? If they're gonna offer you a 1% back, great. That means your offer is now $10,000 higher. That's cute. It's not gonna do anything, right? So like, do you want to be in the house or do you want to make your offer $10,000 better because some other agent's willing to do that? So it really is just kind of coming into figuring out like what's important to you about that 1% kickback, right? You'll make it up somewhere. It's either now you're in the house or you're still writing offer after offer after offer.
which one do you
Where do you
want?
want to be? Because interest rates are still fluctuating. Prices are still fluctuating. Where do you want to be? Like, it's just like, let's have this conversation.
So is there a shorter answer, because I get that a lot, actually. Of them asking me, oh, before we work with you, do you give me a percentage?
No, next question.
Just say it like that. Yeah.
Say no.
Will you
Don't
cut
say
your
anything else.
commission? No. Next question. And then if they come back and say, okay, like, blah, 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 then I say, okay, what's important to you about that? Like, you've brought this up to me a few times.
So that's key right
What's
there.
important?
What's important to you about that? What is important to that? You
Right?
know,
And then
and get them
how
like,
many offers have you written? So that's,
Yeah.
so when we're at an open house, like that's one of the scripting things that we've been working on with our team is to find out like, have they written any offers, right? If they say, yeah, we've written some offers, great. Then they're working with an agent or they're kind of looking around for agents. If they say no, great. Now I have an opportunity to kind of like have more of a conversation with them. But it's just simple. Like when they are asking about a commission kickback, will you do it? No, that's not how we work. We're not a discount brokerage, whatever. What's important to you about that 1%? Right? Because most of the time, and it's just an education part to them. Hey, have you had a conversation with your lender about what a 1% back to you would look like? Most of the time it's in closing costs and prepaids, but other than that, there's not a lot that they can do, right? So let's have that conversation. Let's figure out, is it more important to you for you to have the closing cost paid, or is it more important to you to be in the house? Because we can work with both of those. But am I going to cut my commission? No. If I can't value myself here, how am I going to value your offer when it comes time to present to you? You want me to cut myself? Where do you want me to cut it and presenting it to the other agent? Because it's not going to come across as strong. You want me to go to bat for you? I will, 100%. This is what it looks like.
Well, yeah, you're showing that you have a strong negotiator.
Right.
You can't negotiate.
Because I have a whole other handful of clients who are. So I'm going to spend my time working on the clients who are willing to do that and are 100% in the game. That's where I'm spending my time. Because if I'm over here, I'm just chasing everything. I'm chasing the market. I'm chasing the buyers. I'm chasing everything. And I have other things that I could be spending my time doing. Anything else?
you guys, nothing else. You guys are gonna get some contracts this week?
Does anybody else on here have any questions?
Anything on Zoom, you guys? Anything you'd like to ask?
Nothing in the chat.
You want, oh,
We've accidentally closed.
you got, oh, it's okay.
Bye, everybody.
What about open? Do you guys want to talk about the open houses? What's going on over there? Are you getting open houses that you only get one person
Our open houses have definitely been a little slower.
in? Mm-hmm.
We have had a few that have been on the market for a few weeks. Even with some drastic price reductions and still kind of not having the traffic that we're hoping for. And again, like it's really coming down to like, why, right? So we're doing a brain dump after every single one. Why do you think we did? Is there something else we should change, right? Price is great, condition is great, location is great. The one thing that we can change out of that's price, right? So what are the buyers saying? We're calling the pending agents. How many offers did you get, right? What did those look like? Do you have any buyers that didn't win out on this property that you could send our direction? Some of our open houses are still fairly good. Like I think at this point, if we have like 15 or 20 people, like we're considering that like a huge success.
Right.
And of course, like it all depends on how you present the house right away, right? That's why we're still going through and having the painful conversation with the seller of, we're still going to go through, we're going to give you the option of doing the kitchens, the flooring, right? But this is what the buyers are looking for. Buyers are still wanting all of this. So if we can, we're doing and going through when we're very first getting the listing and we're kind of going through this, we're saying, who is the buyer, right? If it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, we know that that's not going to be a huge family, right? It might be dual income, no kids, dual income, 1 kid. It might be a single person. So that's kind of how we're building our advertising, right? How are we going to sell this to the next person? And then, week of open house, we're still doing the door knocking. We're still doing the champagne tours for the neighbors beforehand. We're still doing lots of signs. We're still doing some of those things just to kind of get the traffic up, but we're also letting them know market shifted. Don't expect an open house with 100 people. It's not going to happen, right? We're still recording the video walkthroughs. We're still doing all of those things because we get so many people who look at those videos. And if we can drive them to us first, great. If we can drive them to their agent to go see it, great, right? We're still doing everything. The market has shifted. We're still doing every single thing that we did before. We're not cutting anything out. We're not changing the process of anything. We're still doing everything exactly the same, but we are having the conversations with the sellers of this is the expectation. Don't expect 100 people at open house. And you may spend 100,000 to get it ready. Don't expect to get 500,000 more. But if you get 100,000 more or 200,000 more, you're still ahead, right? But it's still like, that's just where we're at. We're in a spot where the done ones are still going. So if our seller has the opportunity of doing it, make the updates. You're not going to regret it, right?
Do you do like advertising on Facebook and Snap, Instagram?
We do Facebook. We do Facebook and we do Instagram. Most of ours is targeted on Facebook. And again, that's why we're going through and saying, who is the buyer of this property? I'm not going to advertise it to an over 60 community if it's not going to be in that kind of wheelhouse. So that's why we're going through, we're sitting down with our marketing team and figuring out who is this next buyer. Let's advertise to them.
Yeah.
So we are doing a little bit of that. We're probably not doing it to the extent that we probably could. But we're still utilizing social.
I've never
So are
had
you-
to renew my ad. I've renewed and spent over $1,000 on Facebook and.
Well, you might also change things up in terms of like maybe the picture that you're doing, or maybe
Yeah.
go do a personal walkthrough of it,
Yeah. I've
right?
done that.
Drop them to the link there to kind of show them.
So I know with command, because I believe you guys are 100% command,
Yes,
pretty
ma'am.
much, right? Okay.
Command for Teams is not exactly where it's supposed to be yet. So
Right.
we're implementing a few other,
Got it, got
but for
it.
the single agent, it is.
It's perfect, because I was talking with Caroline about that, and she was saying that they do a lot of ads on command because they will actually look at the picture that is being looked at the most, and that's what they're going to see on Facebook. It's the rhythm of it, right? So it's not like you have to go through all your pictures and move it around. They're doing it automatically. That makes the system is, it's me talking tech right now. So yeah, the system, the gods up there are doing it. I don't know how, but it's happening.
The photos you want, and then it's.
Right. You got to select the photos from the MLS. You pull them in. Very simple. If I can do it, you can do it. And then when the person on Facebook's scrolling through it and where they stop, it triggers something. So that's what's going to be brought up the next go around. What was that?
That'll be shown them.
Yeah, that would be shown the most.
So when you get a new listing, when do you begin your Facebook ad? Or like, if you're gonna have a new listing on an open house that weekend, do you launch an ad Tuesday, Wednesday?
No, so our process has still been, if we're doing like a listing launch, and this is maybe an opportunity for us to, now that the market is shifting and now that we know that some of this is happening, to reevaluate and see like, is this the best? So right now what we're doing when we're launching the listing is on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before, we're doing some door knocking, we're inviting some agents, we're telling people that it's going into the coming soon on MLS, and then we can kind of talk about it. And so that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is when we're kind of doing the build up for that Thursday, we're doing a neighbors only champagne tour, an agent preview. So if there's any agents who have been kind of talking to us about coming soon, or what do we have, that's when we're inviting them. Friday is kind of a buffer day for us in terms of like getting everything touched up in paint or whatever it looks like. Saturday, Sunday open house. So one of the things that we're looking at is, do we shift the champagne tour to Friday? So then it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if it's Friday and it's in the MLS, so we typically will hit Thursday night or Friday morning on the MLS. And if that's the case, then we can now post it as an open house to the public. Maybe we can drive some more traffic there. Typically we do Saturday, Sunday open houses, and then we're still looking at offers on Thursday the next week. So I think because we're still going through and doing a bunch of the updates, the market readies, the pictures are fabulous. The video walkthrough with the agents is really great. It's a personalized showing experience for that. And I think kind of because of all of that, and because it's move-in ready, you know, most of ours are still selling within that time frame. We still have a few that are kind of extending from that. But that's still kind of been our process.
Does anybody have any other questions? Anything going on in your world right now with buyers? Now's the time to ask. You have Kyle.
I know I've had buyers and I think they pull back, they stopped even responding to my reports because I know their pre-approval is expired.
Yeah. Yeah, and some will, some won't, right? So like for us, when we started to kind of see and sense that the market was bubbling or kind of doing some funky stuff, we utilized that opportunity to make sure that all of our clients had conversations with our lenders, right? Because when interest rates went up 2%, that does a lot, especially if you're looking at like a $2.5 million price point, that shifts a lot. And so we wanted to make sure that all of our buyers had the information that they needed. And so if we had not had a conversation with them, we spoke to the lender and said, hey, you know what, like, of course, times are changing. Could you please call these 5 buyers, or let's set up a Zoom, right? So we set up a Zoom with all of our buyers and kind of said, hey, lender, tell us what's going on, right? And of course, some of our people did back out of the market. Some of our people said, you know what, we're not gonna, do you have the guts to compete in this market? And that's kind of why our consultation has kind of changed as well, to say, do you have the guts to compete in this market? Do you have the guts to compete when interest rates are fluctuating? If we can get you into an offer, we can lock you into a rate. You know, we've done a few where maybe it was a little bit longer on market, and we've had a conversation with that listing agent and said, hey, what price point is important to you? Okay, great. Now I know if that price point is important to you, maybe I can come to you at something close to that, but we're going to want that point buy down, right? We want the seller to buy a point so that my buyers can now get closer back to what they can pay in that monthly obligation, right? So it's really just communication at this point. We're staying on top of them. I mean, in the old market, when interest rates were low, we didn't have to have this conversation. You could start with them and 3 months later find them something and you didn't have to have that conversation. Now it's starting to become more of like when we're checking in and seeing how things are going, hey, have you had a conversation about that interest rate, right? What is that still looking like for you? Because do we need to change your search criteria? And we had that conversation right up front. You know, if now our price points backed off, we need to go through the MLS. We're going to back off your price point there, right? Because I don't want to show you stuff you can't afford. I don't want to show you stuff that maybe your monthly obligation is going to be too high now. So it's really just staying on top of that conversation. And again, showing them, hey, I just want to let you know, this week we saw 18 price reductions. What does that mean for you as a buyer? For us, that's 10% of our market that we focus on. 10% of those had price reductions this week. So how are you structuring that?
Right.
Right?
And I've included that information to my buyers.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
hey, buy some prices are coming down, you know.
Yeah.
So now you see them because they were priced out of their criteria
Yeah.
they wanted, and now it's coming back.
Yeah, so we take all of that information that we do when we're going through on Brokers Tour and taking our notes. So we have a section that's all Brokers Tour notes, boom, boom, boom. We do a social media video of our top 5 properties. We go through and say like, hey, here's our Tuesday insight. And then we have a section below that's all notes for stuff that we do throughout the week. But on Tuesday afternoons, Wednesday mornings, we actually send out a note to all of our buyers. That's our market insight. It's everything that we toured. And at the top of it, it's a note and it says, hey, this week, this is what we saw within our market. Here's the graph. Oh, by the way, here's all the houses we saw. Right. So now what we're going to do is we're shifting to, instead of that being a paragraph of text and a block of information, now that's going to be my face or Michelle, our other buyer's agent, or Kyle, my marketing specialist, to go through and record a 1-minute video. Hey, here's what's happening on the market this week. And we're going to see if because our click-through rate is pretty good, but we're going to see if they actually stay on our page a little bit longer or go to any of our following like pages below. But every single one, when you go through our on-market insight, it's got the video at the top is what we're going to have. And then it's got the chart that shows here's what's happening this week. And then down below, it's got all the properties that we saw. It's got our favorite picture that we have from the MLS, right? You don't have to go through and recreate the wheel. If you click on that, it takes them to my MLS portal that's branded to me. It's got all of my contact information. It's got all the MLS information. So if they click on it, we can actually see. And then below that is, we actually, when we very first started it, we started with kind of like paragraph format of like, hey, here's what we liked about the property. Here's some things that you might not know if you were just looking at it on MLS. Here's kind of the follow-up questions that we have, blah, blah, blah. And now we're just doing bullet points, right? Here's our top 3 things about every single property. And the reason we switched is because number 1, nobody wants to read the full paragraph. Number 2, they just want the bullet point information. And number 3, we can get our notes in so much faster if it's just like, love the location, you know, with the school down the street. We love that it's 2 minutes from Whole Foods, smell like cat, right? Or like grandma chic, total opportunity, like whatever that looks like, you can just like put that in there. And then like people are looking at it a lot more. So our click-through rate and our stay rate was a lot better when we did the bullet points than when we did full like format. And it doesn't have to be that fancy, right? You could just put it on Instagram.
See, with me, I like the bullet points over the video because I want to be able to read it when I
Because that's
have
your
time.
personality, right?
Right, I
You're
just
also
want to read it and be
like,
done and get, you know.
But some of our clients would love the whole like, oh, it's a walkthrough
Yeah, people
experience.
love all
and,
that.
like,
Yeah,
they love
you gotta
that. But-
give both.
Yeah, most of our people like the boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
So you're listing each property that you have received in your feedback on those properties, and you say you're saying about 60 properties
Yeah.
a week.
So the email that we send on Tuesday,
The top
Wednesday
5.
is everything we saw on tour. So that might be 15 or 20. And then they can sign up, which sends us an email and says, hey, we're interested in signing up for your thing. So that could be through Instagram. We try to keep it only to buyers, not to agents. But when they go through and see that, it gives them access to our sheet on Excel, where they can actually go through and see it's broken down. Here's what we saw on tour. This is the insights that you got. And then there's an additional properties toured section down below where it's just got all the remaining information, right? So it's kind of a little carrot dangled in front of them to say like, hey, you want to see what else we're seeing? Come into our atmosphere, right? Yeah, come
You
hang
guys,
out
did
with
this
us.
help?
Yeah.
Do you want to see him again in the next quarters? Are we gonna go see him? Are we gonna give him referrals?
Referrals.
Yes. What area are you working? in?
We're Bay Area, Mid-Peninsula. Our kind of bread and butter is anywhere from Hillsborough all the way down to Atherton. Of course, we'll do Santa Clara County, so we'll do Mountain View, Palo Alto. I mean,
So
we'll
this
even
is
go
our
to-
way of thanking him for coming
So
down.
anything that's on that side, send it to us.
Yeah.
I do.
Are we gonna see you on stage, Mega Camp? Are you guys going on stage?
I think Caroline is.
Caroline's, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Maybe I will be in like a few years. I still have time for 40 under 40. So we'll see.
Yeah, make it happen, make it happen. But he is top 1%, you guys. So that's, are you going white? Too. Awesome, awesome. So that's what, you know, your goals right there. That's huge to be able to network.
And Mega Camp
Mega
is
Camp.
like next month. It's all focused on back to the
This month.
basics.
Yeah,
We're in August.
Oh God, we are in August.
20 days, right? Something like
It's
that.
correction, it's in this month.
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently I'm still in 2020. It's in August, but the whole thing of it's back to the basics.
Back to basics.
Okay.
Really good, good. Well, you guys, thank you. Thank you so much. That, all right, so can you send us that spreadsheet? I don't have the right computer. so-
I will. I have it with me, so before I leave, I'll
Perfect.
pop it to you.
You can close it down. Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.